This happened a few nights after Christmas 2 years ago during a snowstorm. I was 18, still in high school, and working evenings at a GameStop in a strip mall in the Midwest. It was my first retail job, and because it was the holiday season, they had been scheduling people later than usual. That night was supposed to be easy. The weather was bad enough that we had not been busy at all. Snow started in the afternoon and just kept coming. By the time it got dark, the parking lot was already covered, and most of the stores around us had already closed or were barely getting customers. Normally, there were 2 of us closing, but my coworker left around 9:30. He always got picked up because he did not drive yet. They were strict about that, especially in bad weather. He asked me if I would be okay for the last half hour, and I said yes because I did not want to seem like I could not handle it. We closed at 10. By 9:40, everything was basically dead. I locked one of the 2 front doors like we were supposed to, and left the other unlocked until close. I started straightening shelves and counting drawers, doing everything slowly to kill time. I remember checking my phone and seeing messages from friends complaining about being snowed in. I was annoyed more than anything. I just wanted to get out of there and go home. At 9:55 or around then, the door opened. The bell rang loud and sharp in the quiet store. A guy walked in. He looked like he was in his early 20s, but it was hard to tell because he did not take care of himself at all. His hair was greasy and stuck out from under a hood. His jacket was dirty, like it had not been washed in a long time, if ever, and it was unzipped, even though it was freezing outside. His jeans were stiff and stained, and his shoes were soaked through. He smelled bad, not just like somebody who needed a shower. It was worse than that. He did not look at me right away. He just stood there for a second, staring at the floor, breathing through his mouth. I said, "Hey, just letting you know we close in a few minutes." I tried to keep my voice normal, friendly, even the way we are trained. He looked up slowly and stared at me in a way that made my skin crawl. Just empty, like he was looking through me or past me. "That's fine," he said. He started walking around the store, touching things without really looking at them, picking up game cases and putting them back in the wrong spots, running his fingers along the Funko Pop boxes like he was counting them. I stayed behind the counter and kept counting cash, pretending everything was normal. You get weird people in retail. That is just how it is. I told myself not to overreact. He stepped in front of the used game section and asked me how old I was. The question hit me wrong immediately, but I replied 18. He nodded slowly, like he was following that information away. "You go to school around here?" he asked. "No," I said. That was a lie. I did not even think about it, though. It just came out. Gave me a little smile, and it looked forced. I told him again that we were closing, and asked if he needed help finding anything. I was hoping he would just grab something and leave. Instead, he walked closer to the counter, like way too close. "I need you to come with me," he said. I laughed because sometimes laughing makes things less awkward. "I can't. I am working," I said. He leaned forward slightly and lowered his voice. "I was not asking." Then he reached into his jacket. At first, my brain tried to make it something normal. A wallet, a phone, anything but what it was. But he pulled out a gun. He did not point it at me right away. He just held it low near his stomach, angled so I could see it clearly. "If you do not come with me," he said, just calm and flat, "I am going to have to do something very bad to you, and I do not want to do that, okay? So, just listen." Everything in my body went cold. I could not feel my hands. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. He raised the gun a little, just enough to make sure I understood. "Don't scream," he said. "Don't do anything stupid." I remember thinking about my parents, about how mad they would be if they knew I was closing alone, about how stupid it was that I agreed to do it, and about how the snow meant nobody was around. Then the front door opened again. The bell rang, and an older man walked in. Big guy with a pretty heavy hunting-style camo coat, slicked back gray hair, and a huge beard, glasses fogged from the cold. He did not look confused or surprised. He looked focused, like he already knew something was wrong. The guy with the gun froze, and the older man took one look at him and said firmly, "Put it down." The younger guy started yelling immediately, swearing, shaking, and waving the gun around like he did not know what to do with it anymore. "Back off," he screamed. "This doesn't involve you." The older man did not raise his voice. "Son," he said, "don't make me do this." That is when I noticed the older man had a gun too. He had not pulled it all the way out, but I could see it on his hip and was seconds away from drawing it out. It was steady. His hand was not shaking at all. The younger guy's confidence disappeared instantly. He started crying, like actual crying, saying he did not mean it, saying he just needs help, and saying that he was not going to hurt anyone. The older man kept talking to him like he was a kid, telling him to breathe and telling him to put the gun on the floor. After what felt like forever, the younger guy slowly set it down. The old man kicked it away and looked at me. "Go to the back," he said. "Call 911 now." My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped the phone twice before I could dial. It took the police maybe about 20 minutes to get there. They took the guy away in handcuffs, and he did not even fight. He just looked small. Everything calmed down. Other man stayed until my parents arrived. He told the police he had seen the guy earlier, when he came to pick up his grandson from the GameStop next door. My coworker, he said the guy had been standing outside in the snow watching people go in and out, lingering around. He said something about him felt wrong, so he stayed nearby. When he heard screaming, he came in. I quit that job the very next day and called my boss. He was sad about it, but understood it. I still think about how close it came. If he had not trusted his gut, I do not know what would have happened.
This happened in the mid-2000s in my hometown of Wisconsin. I had been at my sister's place for dinner, and I stayed longer than I meant to because my brother-in-law kept saying, "It's fine, it's not that bad," like repeating it would change the weather. By the time I left, the snow had turned into a real blizzard. Not pretty snow, not the kind you take pictures of. It was that whiteout where your headlights just light up a wall of moving white and you feel like you are driving inside a shaken-up snow globe. I had a travel mug of coffee in the cup holder that was already cold. My windshields kept fogging up no matter what I did. I had the defroster blasting, but the edges of the windshield were still filmed over, and every time I wiped it with my sleeve, it made it worse. My wipers were struggling, making that heavy, slow scrape sound like they were tired too. I should have stayed. I know that now, but I had work early the next morning, and I did not want to sleep on their couch and have to dig my car out at 5 a.m. It felt better to just go home and deal with it. Roads were empty, which should have been a clue. Usually, even in snow, you will see a couple cars out. That night, it felt like I was the only person dumb enough to be driving. The storm made everything weird. Signs would appear and disappear. The reflective paint on the road was buried, so you are mostly guessing where the lanes were based on the vague, darker lines where tires had gone earlier.
The wind would shove the car sideways every once in a while, and you would correct, and then you would correct again. It was exhausting. I kept telling myself the same thing. Just keep it steady and do not slam the brakes and do not get stuck. My phone was just a basic flip phone. No GPS, no maps, and I was not calling anyone even if I wanted to. I did not want to take my hands off the wheel. Had both hands on it like an old person. At some point, I got off the main highway because I thought the back crowd would be faster. That was my second mistake. The main road at least had occasional plows. Side roads were just white, nothing but freaking snow and darkness. Trees started lining the road on both sides, and the wind pushed snow off the branches in bursts. Every time that happened, it looked like something moved into the corner of your vision. I kept flinching like an idiot. My shoulders were tight. My hands were cramping from gripping the wheel. Then I saw hazard lights ahead. At first, it was just 2 orange blinks, dull and half hidden by the snow. I slowed down right away. My brain went, okay, someone's stuck or somebody spun out. In a storm like that, it happens. You know, you see it all the time. As I get closer, I realized the car was not in a ditch. It was across the road, not parked from the shoulder, literally sideways, blocking both lanes. Like, it had spun and stopped right there. The hazards were on, but something felt weird. I pulled up and stopped a good distance back because I did not trust the road. My tire slid a little when I hit the brakes, and that made my stomach drop. I put the car in park and just sat there for a second, watching the hazard lights blinking through the blowing snow. My first thought was, I cannot get around this. My second thought was, I should not get out. But then I saw movement near the block's car. Somebody on the driver's side punched down like they were checking something. I rolled my window down a crack. Cold air hit my face immediately. It felt like needles. "Hey," I yelled. "Are you okay?" The wind stole half of it. I was not even sure my voice carried. The person stood up and turned toward me. A guy put up, hands down by his sides. He started walking towards my car, slow, not limping, not waving his arms, just walking right down the middle of the road like he was not worried about slipping, like he owned that stretch of road. That is when the hazard lights bothered me more. They were not blinking in a normal rhythm. One seemed a half beat off, made the whole thing feel wrong, like the car was not actually in distress, like it was staged. I told myself that was a stupid thing to think. People's lights break, cold messes with electronics, whatever. The guy reached my headlights and I could see him better. Mid-20s maybe, not dressed for the weather. That was the first real red flag. His coat was thin, his jeans looked dry, and his shoes looked clean. Clean shoes in a blizzard is a weird thing to notice, but I noticed it because my boots were soaked just from walking from my sister's porch to my car earlier. I had stepped in snow once and my pant legs were wet. This guy looked like he had not stepped in anything. He stopped in my driver's window and leaned down slightly. "Hey," he said. His face was pale, and he had that red, chapped look around his nose, like he had been out in the cold, but his breathing did not match it. He was not panting and he was not shivering. He looked completely calm. "You all right?" I asked. It came out shaky, which annoyed me because I was trying to sound normal. "Car stuck," he said, and snorted back toward the sideways car. "Can you give me a ride?" That was fast. He did not ask for a push. He did not ask if I had a shovel. He went straight to give me a ride like that was the plan. "To where?" I asked. He glanced down the road behind me like he was checking something. Then he looked back at me and said, "Just up the road. There is a house." "What house?" I said. He did not answer that. He just leaned closer like he wanted me to unlock the door. "Come on," he said. "It is freezing." It was freezing. That part was true, but something about him did not fit. If his car spun out, he should have looked stressed, angry, embarrassed, cold, literally anything. Instead, he looked ready. Everything was moving way too fast for this to feel normal. I kept my hand on the lock button without thinking. I did not open the door. "I can call somebody for you," I said. "No service," he said immediately. That was another thing. He said it way too fast, like he had already rehearsed it. Also, I did not know if there was service or not because I had not tried, but I did not like him deciding the options for me. I glanced past him at the car blocking the road. "Are you out here alone?" I asked. He stared at me for a second. "Yeah," he said. "Just me." He did not look back, did not even glance at it, like he did not care what was happening behind him. "It's just me," he said. And then he smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. It was like he was waiting to see if that would work. I looked past him through the snow at the sideways car, and I tried to look inside it. The windshield was frosted over, but the inside looks dark. Then I noticed something else that made my stomach flip. The car's engine was running. You could see the exhaust coming out in a steady stream. If they were stuck and waiting for help, keeping the engine on made sense, but the car was parked sideways across the road like a barricade. If he wanted help, why block the entire road? Why not pull to the shoulder even if you slid? I did not say any of that out loud. I just sat there in my seat trying to figure out what to do without making him angry. "I cannot give you a ride," I said. He did not change expression right away, just stared at me. "Yes, you can," he said quietly. I felt my heart start hitting hard. The heater was blowing on my feet and I still felt cold. "I am not comfortable," I said. That sounded stupid, like I was turning him down for a dance. He lifted his hands, palms out, fainting calm. "Do not be like that," he said. "I just need a ride." I shook my head. He stepped closer to the window and I smelled cigarette smoke. "Open the door," he said. "No." He looked past me into my car like he was checking if anyone was in the passenger seat. Then he looked back at me and his face went flat. He turned and started walking back toward the block's car. For a half second, I felt stupid, like I just refused somebody who genuinely needed help, like I was the paranoid one. Then he lifted his arm and I saw him make a small motion with his hand, like a signal. That is when I saw it. A shape stepped out from the snow on the passenger side of the blocked car. I had not seen anyone there before, because the storm was cutting visibility down to nothing. Second person started walking toward me. That feeling of hopelessness hit me then, the one where your body decides before your brain does. I threw my car into reverse. My tires spun. The car did not move at first. I felt my stomach drop so hard it was like missing a step on the stairs. I hit the gas again harder than I should have. The car jerked back, sliding sideways a little bit. My rear end fishtailed, and I thought it might spin out. I kept reversing anyway, eyes wide, barely able to see. Snow hit the windshield so hard it looked like sand. My wipers could not keep up. I glanced forward and saw the first guy turn around. He saw me backing up, and his calm vanished. He started running toward my car. That was the moment I knew it was not help. I reversed faster. The road behind me was just white, and I was basically guessing. I could feel the car sliding and correcting itself. My hands were shaking so bad I could not keep the wheel steady. I heard something hit my car, a loud thud against the side. The second guy was closer now. I do not know when he had moved. I just had not noticed until he stepped into view. He was taller and wearing darker clothes. He moved like he was not worried about slipping either. A reverse light lit up the snow behind me, and all I could see was white and two faint tire lines. I backed up until I felt my tires drop off the edge of the road into the shallow ditch. The car lurched and tilted. For a second, I thought I was stuck. Then the tires caught somehow, and the car bounced back up just enough that I could straighten out. I slammed it into drive. The wheel spun again. The car moved forward but sideways at the same time, like it did not know what it wanted to do. I turned the car down the road away from them and I just went. Not fast because the road would not allow it, but faster than I should have been going on a white out. I did not look back for a while because I could not risk it. I just drove until the car was gone behind me and the snow swallowed the hazard lights. I kept going until I hit a stretch where there were lights. Not a town really, just a couple of street lights and a gas station sign going through the snow like a mirage. I pulled into the parking lot and sat there shaking, hands still clenched on the wheel like I could not let it go. I tried calling my sister. No signal though. Tried again and still not working. I went inside the gas station, and I am sure I looked insane. Guy behind the counter asked if I was okay, and I said somebody tried to stop me on the road. That was all I could get out without sounding like I was not making it up. He nodded like he had heard something like that before, which did not make me feel better. I stayed there until the storm eased up enough that a plow came through and traffic started moving again. I did not drive back that way. I took whatever main road I could find and added almost an hour to my trip. I made it home close to 0 inches the morning. I did not sleep much. The next day I kept thinking about the clean shoes. That is the part that sticks in my head. I do not know why. It is just the thing my brain grabbed onto. If I had not noticed it, I might have opened the door. I might have let him in to warm up or call somebody. I might have ended up stranded, kidnapped, or dead. I never found out who they were or what they wanted.
I did not even go looking for news about it because I did not want to read about something and convince myself it was connected.
This happened a few winters ago during a snowstorm that ended up being worse than anyone expected. I was in my mid-22s at the time, and living alone in a small house in Bum Nowhere, Pennsylvania. My wife was out of town for work, and I had planned to just stay and shovel in the morning and deal with it then. The snow started mid-afternoon. By early evening, it was coming down steady, thick flakes that stuck right away. I remember going out once, around 6, to clear the poor chant, the first few feet of the walkway, thinking I would stay ahead of it. That was the last time I went outside that night. By 9, the road in front of my house was completely covered. No plow would come through. I did not see a single car pass. The wind picked up, and the snow started blowing sideways, piling against the fence and the side of the house. Inside was quiet. I had the TV on low, mostly for background noise. It felt mostly like a normal night, but I was just aware that if something went wrong, I was not going anywhere. Around 10, I got up to stretch, and I noticed something through the front window that stopped me. There were footprints on the walkway. They were not mine. Mine were wider and messy from shoveling earlier. These were narrow and straight, coming from the street toward my porch. The snow had already started filling them, but they were still clear enough to follow. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to work it through logically. Maybe somebody walked by earlier before it got bad. Maybe they cut across my yard. None of that really lined up, but I did not jump straight to panic either. I locked the front door. It was already locked, but checked it anyway. Then I checked the back door. Same thing. I went back to the living room and sat down, telling myself I was overthinking it. About 15 minutes later, I heard someone knocking at my front door. I froze. The TV was still on, and I remember reaching for the remote and muting it without looking at the screen. Another knock followed a little bit louder this time. I did not move. I just sat there staring at the door, listening to the wind outside and the faint hiss of snow hitting the windows. Then a voice came through the door. Amazon. That was it. No greeting, just the word. My first thought was that it did not make sense. It was late, the roads were horrible, and I was not expecting anything. But I also knew Amazon drivers sometimes worked late, especially around the holidays. I stood up, but I did not go to the door. I stayed back near the hallway. I did not order anything, I said. There was a pause long enough that I thought maybe whoever it was had already left. Then, I have a package for this address. I need a signature before I leave. I asked him who it was for. Another awkward pause. Amazon, he said again. Like that answered it at all. That is when I noticed how quiet it was outside. The wind had died down for a moment, and the snow was falling straight down. It was so silent I could hear my own ears ringing. Hey, we're good. We did not order anything, and I am not opening the door, I said. That is when everything changed. He slammed his fist against the door so hard the whole frame rattled. Open the door, he yelled. I jumped back without thinking. Heart was hammering and I felt like I just took a shot of pure adrenaline. I said, I'm not opening it, I yelled back. There was a few more seconds of silence, and then he started screaming, not yelling, like pure screaming. Loud, raw, angry sounds that did not sound planned. He shouted threats that did not fully make sense, switching between insults, and promises that he would break the door down and drag me out. He kept repeating that he knew I was inside, but he could still hear me moving. I backed down the hallway, my phone in my hands, not really sure what to do or even say. I remember thinking that if someone a few houses down heard anything, it would probably be hard to hear through the storm. He started pounding on the door again, harder this time. I could hear something scraping, like he was kicking at the bottom or dragging something against it. I thought about the fact that my front door was old. I yelled that I was calling the police, and that is when he completely lost it. He screamed louder than before, voice cracking, threatening things I will not repeat. He sounded close to the door, like his face was right up against it. I could kind of hear his breathing between words. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I stood there for quite a time, not moving, listening to the house in the storm, my ears still ringing. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to look through the window next to the door. The porch was empty. Snow had already started piling where he must have been standing. I did not sleep much that night. Kept all the lights on and stayed in the living room. Every time the wind hit the house, I felt like he was there again. In the morning, the storm had buried everything. The footprints were gone. The porch was covered. There were no marks on the door, no dents, nothing I could point to and say this happened. But I know it did, because ever since then, past few times when I got someone knocking on my door, especially late at night, I do not even get up from the couch or make a peep. I just sit there and wait for them to leave. This happened on Black Friday in 2008. At the time, I was a few years out of college and was working my first real job. I finally had a little bit of money in my bank account, and I was excited to go Black Friday shopping. In particular, I wanted to go to Best Buy, which was the best place to get electronics back then. They were having a really big sale. It was like pretty much everything was on sale and had a big discount. I had gone Black Friday shopping in the past and always enjoyed it. But on this year, I took it more serious. Most of my electronics were really old, and I had them since college or even high school. Some of my stuff was even from the 9 seconds. So I was planning to get a ton of new things. A TV, new laptop, maybe an iPod, which were a newer thing back then. My best friend Riley, who I had known since we were kids, was kind of in the same situation as me. Riley had recently got a new apartment as well, so we were going to go shopping together. We planned to actually camp outside of Best Buy to try to be one of the first people for the sale. I had remembered years previous that people had done this, and I always thought that they were crazy, but now it seemed like it might be fun. On Thanksgiving night, I met up with Riley, and we headed to the Best Buy. I believe that they opened at 5 a.m. the next morning, so it would not be too long of a night, but it was fairly cold out with it being late November. We bundled up, and I brought a tent and sleeping bags as well. When we got to the Best Buy, there were a few people already there. I saw a few other tents and people sitting in chairs they had brought and stuff. One guy brought a TV and a portable generator or something, and several people were watching it. Riley and I were maybe the 30th people or so to get there, and people continued to arrive after us. We got in line, and it was maybe 7 p.m., so we had about 10 hours to go. Quickly, the line got longer behind us. There was a fence divider on the sidewalk out front of the store, so the line was pretty organized. For the first few hours, Riley and I talked with each other, as well as some of the people around us. We got to know them a little bit, and talked about the things that we were excited to buy. Most of the people seemed pretty nice. By about 10 p.m., we were getting cold and tired. We decided to try to get some sleep, so we got inside the tent and in our sleeping bags. Some other people nearby went in their tents as well, and things got pretty quiet. Surprisingly, I fell asleep pretty quick. I had been worried that I would not be able to get any sleep at all. However, at some point in the night, I was awoken. At first, I was a little dazed and confused, but I quickly remembered where I was and why I was in a tent. Then, I heard the sound of the tent being unzipped. I did not know why this was happening. I looked over, and Riley was still in the tent and was sleeping. Then, I saw right in front of me the tent start to open. This creepy guy started looking in. He was looking right at me and had a grosso-looking beard and messy hair. It really freaked me out. He stopped and then was just staring at me. After a few seconds, I was finally able to speak. I asked him who he was. He said nothing but just kept staring at me. It was really weird. I sat up, and the guy quickly closed the tent and moved away. I was glad that he was gone. I reached over and opened the tent and looked outside. I could not see him anywhere. He must have walked away. So, I closed the tent and then tried to fall back asleep. It was 2:00 in the morning. We had our alarm set for 4, which was an hour before the store opened. I thought that maybe the guy was trying to cut the line because we had seen the people around us, and he was not one of them. I had no idea where he had come from. I was somehow able to fall back asleep and then woke up at 4 to our alarm. Riley and I both got up, packed up the tent, and then waited the final hour. It was crazy to leave the tent and now see more people around. And in the final hour, a bunch more cars entered the parking lot, and the line got even longer. There was now a huge crowd outside. I talked to Riley about the guy in the tent. We both just laughed it off. Even though I had been really creeped out in the moment, and I was still kind of creeped out thinking back to it, I looked around and did not see the guy anywhere. I knew that I would remember that face. I could not get it out of my head. It was so creepy. At last, the store opened. Everybody rushed inside, but it was not that crazy. Things were pretty civilized. There was no pushing or shoving or anything, at least not that I saw. Riley and I quickly made our way to the items that we wanted. Before we knew it, the store became extremely busy. Between employees, security people, and mostly customers, it was packed. We walked around getting the things that we wanted. After being inside the store for maybe 20 minutes, I saw him, the same guy who I had seen at the tent. He was kind of far away, but I knew that it was him. I pointed him out to Riley, and we talked about what happened again. The man was near the front of the store, and he did not really seem to be looking at anything. He was just kind of standing there and looking around. Then he looked over, and we made eye contact with him. I quickly looked away, and Riley and I moved. We shopped around a little bit more, and we both got pretty much everything that we wanted to and then some. Then we went to the front of the store and checked out. When we were waiting in line to check out, I looked for the man again, but did not see him. I was glad that I did not see him anymore. He very well could have still been there because the store was still packed, but I did not see him, and so I did not really care. After we checked out, we left, and then we actually went to Target and Walmart for fun. Those stores were both really busy, and I do not really remember if we got anything or not, but I just remember that we went there. We then went to a local mall for a little while before going home. I dropped Riley off and then I went back to my apartment. I was tired from getting only a few hours of sleep in a tent, and I took a nice nap. Then I got up and started setting up some of my electronics. Now that night, I was up in my apartment, just relaxing. I was watching my new TV and setting up my new computer. Obviously it was Friday, so I had no work the following day. Plus, I had taken a nap, so I was up late. At a little after midnight, I remember that I noticed something out of the corner of my eye from the window. My apartment was on the second floor of the building. I remembered that it looked out to the parking lot. At this time of night, it would be very quiet. However, I had seen someone walking. For whatever reason, I noticed. I looked over, and there he was again. That same guy. The man who had opened our tent, and the man who I had seen in Best Buy. He was just standing in the parking lot and staring up at me. It sent a chill down my spine. I instantly got up and closed all the blinds and covered all the windows. I was so creeped out that I was too scared to look out of them again. I had lived in that apartment for multiple years and had never seen the guy. I did not think that he lived there. After a while, I looked again. He was gone. The guy was nowhere in sight, and I was afraid that he might be in the building. My doors were locked, but luckily, nothing else happened. I never saw him again after that or anything. I still do not know how or why he went to my apartment. It was the craziest thing. I will never forget that creepy man's stare.